welcome to another one of my videos. If you could like, comment and subscribe, let's get that over and done with. I'm sorry I haven't made a video in about a week. Truth is I worked 90 hours last week and I simply did not have the time. That's the bottom line. I still need to respond to the comments that people left me. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the economy as a whole. And the idea behind the video is more to do with, are we sleepwalking into a depression? Now, I've been thinking about this question for a rather long time. And the reason I've been thinking about it is because I've got a lot of assets, or I've built up a lot of assets. I've also built up a lot of liabilities along the way. And I'm thinking about where it's best to move my chips. You know, it's not to give advice or to say this is going to happen, you should do X, Y, Z. I will never do that. You know, it's all down to individual circumstances and where you are in life that will dictate what you do with your own individual funds. But I've been having a look at some economic indicators. I think we're already in recession. I think they're expecting a 35% decrease or contraction in the economy for the quarter coming up, which is, it's pretty much unprecedented. But also, it's not like previous recessions. You know, it's a false figure in the sense that we've essentially been put on pause. The main issue that I'm worrying about is the sheer amount of debt in the system. Now, for those of you that don't know, I've spoken to a lot of my customers about this. I got into coin dealing, especially gold and silver, because I felt we were only heading to one destination, and I think this virus is actually speeding it up. Now, whether I'm right or not is another matter, but you should always scenario plan and put down a strategy or a set of strategies that will financially benefit you should the shit hit the fan, so to speak. You know, I don't want that to happen. I don't like the idea of multiple million people being out of work, but at the same time, if you can benefit from the situation at hand, it's a lot better than not benefiting from it, regardless of how you feel about the situation that unfolds before you. Now, I haven't gone in depth in terms of my research. I've very much looked over the top. I need to know a few things. You know, you can go in depth as much as you like, but what you need to know is, what is the debt level for the country? Is it going down or is it going up? Now, if you just type on Google, this is very basic, debt to GDP, it will tell you. It will come up with a range of resources. Those exact words, debt to GDP Great Britain, will give you actually a timeline of what's happened, and that's being compiled by Eurostat, which is a decent source to use. You can also look on the IMF. You can look on the United Nations aggregate database. These are all things that any first year economic student will be taught to look at, because they tend to have the most robust figures that are compiled. Now, if we look at Great Britain or the UK, you know, we've been around the 80% debt to GDP. So for every pound we make as a country, we owe 80 pence. I've been reading a lot of influential thinkers and businessmen, and they reckon that the golden number is anything above 80%. It gets a bit nasty for most economies. They don't really mention the type of economy. So if you've got a basic economy compared to a complex economy, such as, for example, Luxembourg is a pretty basic economy because there's not that many people, whereas Great Britain is a complex economy because we've got lots of things happening, lots of industries, lots of trade internationally, whereas Luxembourg doesn't really have that. It just tends to have the financial base, and it doesn't really have industry or minerals or anything like that. Now, if we look at the UK, one of the sources that I quickly found when I did a quick search was World Population Review, and it's compiled their figures from the IMF and United Nations. They've got United Kingdom at 85.67%. So if Ray Dalio, by the way, Ray Dalio started Bridgewater, I think it's Bridgewater Ventures. He's a self-made billionaire. He started from nothing, and he's managed to build himself up to where he is a billionaire, and he puts out many very informative posts, interviews and videos, and they are certainly well worth watching. Now, if he's right and it is around 80%, we've already surpassed that. We're at 85.67 according to the World Population Review. Now, you do need to look at multiple things. I then found another one, commodity.com. Okay, it's one of the first things on the system. When you put Google up, that's at 88.5. Now, what is telling isn't so much those numbers. It's the numbers on a year-to-year basis. Now, I've actually mentioned quantitative easing for a lot of videos. Quantitative easing is where the government has pumped lots of money into the system and done it on the basis of buying up assets, which has led to vast amounts of inflation, which has also separated the wealth differential between the poor, the middle class, and the rich. Now, if you look at debt in terms of GDP, if you just type it, debt to GDP Great Britain, it will come up. It will be an interactive graph that you can move along. If you look at 2000, we've got 34% debt to GDP. You know, it's a very low level. Sorry, 2000's 36.8, 2001's 34%. But as you go along, it starts creeping. It really does. 2008, 49.4. 2009, 63.3. 2010, 74.6. This is when the crash happened of 2008. This is where the banks were over leveraged and the government bailed them out. 2011, 80.1, and it's crept and crept and crept to the point where it has up to 2018 on this graph, so 85.9. If we were to believe commodity.com, it's now closer to 90%. You may be thinking, well, yeah, okay, it's creeping up. Well, what's just happened is the government's essentially bailed out the nation. Now, I'm not here to spread doom and gloom, but that debt has got to come from somewhere. But if Ray Dalio is right, and he usually is, you don't get to be a billionaire in trading markets by being wrong. He is one of the best thinkers of many a generation. If he's right and an economy comes unstable at 80%, where does a government go? When a government owes very little in terms of GDP, they can print more money, but they're constantly chasing their tail. So if they're at close to 90% now, how are they going to pay back the interest? Are they going to raise taxes? Well, we know from current examples that doesn't work. I think France put their tax band up to 50% about 10 years ago, and everyone moved to Belgium. Rich people always have a way of moving in and out of tax jurisdictions because they don't want to pay it. They don't want to pay 50%. And if you're new money and you've built a business, why would you pay 50%? You've worked very hard to get to your position of sometimes privilege. And why should you have to pay half of what you own? So where's the money going to come from? Well, you can't tax the poor because the poor don't have it. And you also need to realise that the UK is a socialist state. The bigger the socialist state, the more the tax has to come from the capitalist side. The more bloated it gets, the less tax there is because it drains more from the system. So from what I can see in my mind is that we're currently on a train heading towards a brick wall or going to fall off a bridge, and we're getting faster and we're going faster towards it. I don't personally know how we can get off the train or stop the train. I can't see it. I'm just one opinion, I'm just one opinion in the market. I could be wrong, and I sincerely hope I am wrong, because if we have a depression, it's going to be nasty. it's going to be really, really nasty, and a lot of people and a lot of families are they're going to struggle and they're going to suffer. And that's the furthest thing from what I want. I've always considered myself as a social capitalist. I'm more of the German model than the UK or the Anglo-American model of capitalism. Now, I don't know. I don't see any other way that we can get out of the rut we're in. And the longer this virus lasts, the more painful it will get. You know, by printing this money, it's got to be paid back at some point. But you're not printing it into assets like quantitative easing was intended. You're bailing out a country. So you can pause it and you can put it on hold, but something's got to give. It really does. And I just don't see how people just won't throw the towel in. Now, I know a lot of well-to-do people due to what I deal in. You know, I deal with people from all walks of life. And the people at the top are scared. They are genuinely worried. Because they see it closer to what the average person does. Scary times. Now, I know it's a bit of a long video. In my mind, I am going to give, well, not a solution. I'm probably going to scenario plan in this bit. There's different rationale, different strategies that you can implement if you do believe there is going to be a depression. I'm personally stacking cash. I am stacking cash and I'm paying down debt. I just chucked $5,000 of my director loan from my stamp business. I just chucked it at debt and wiped it out, knowing that I will get help from the government and I can work and earn that money back. But I've just created a 12-month plan I'm trying to clear £1,000 a month. That's going to be my goal. If there is depression, I'm kind of hoping that my credit lines remain open and then I can buy some cheap assets. Now, what else can you do? I'd get rid of any credit line, because if you lose your job, it's going to bite you. It really will. It's going to hurt and it's going to sting very quickly. There's going to be people that can't do that and they will go to the wall if a depression type scenario does happen. I don't think the stock market's where it should be. There is thinking from some of my colleagues and customers, and they're thinking, well, if they're throwing money at it, then it's going to go into assets and assets are going to rise. I'm not sure I believe it. I don't think it's true. I think at the moment we're having a bit of a dead cat bounce, and I think if the virus lasts longer than planned and longer than we've been told. By the way, like I said in the previous video, the Spanish flu lasted 2 years and the second wave was more deadly than the first. Now, if that happens this time, any chance of recovery, it'll be shot. Confidence will be completely destroyed. And then it will just drain out of the stock market, because if people are on 80% and they're highly indebted and the 80% of their furloughed wage doesn't cover what they're paying for debt, they will sell down their assets and it will just drip out of the system. It will drip out the system to cover margin calls and the credit will disappear. So maybe there will be a deleveraging of some sort, but I don't know. I'm not sure. Personally, I think paying debt and stacking cash is where it's at. I do think there is going to be a bottleneck on gold and silver. There's no supply at the moment, but that is a story for another video. I'm personally hoarding. I'm not selling much. Part of it's due to the fact I can't get the supply in, and part of it's due to the fact that I think it will go higher. You know, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. You know, I can get some stuff, but it's not good quality stuff, you know, and I just don't want it on my books, really. So, yeah, what do you guys think? It's turned into a bit of a ramble and a tangent, but do you think we're heading towards a depression? Do you think I'm wrong? You know, I would love to hear people's opinions on the matter. Regardless of your opinions, this is going to be a critical time for many, many people. And I think it's best that everyone gets their house in order, because it's going to get nasty the longer that this carries on. So I hope you're all safe and well. Take care. Bye.